Hey, what's going on, 49er faithful? I'm actually going to be positive today because we won a game and we won a game against a good team. Um, as you can see on my right or left, uh, I have Rob Schuh joining me once again to break down this 49ers victory. As you know, Rob has his own YouTube channel. You could also see him on the Grant Cohn Show as well. And I feel like he's been making his way around YouTube, or has it just been with Grant? Have you been making your way around?
I have trying to collaborate with folks when I can. I love collaboration, love being here with you. Thank you for having me back. It's always a
Thanks.
pleasure. I thought we had such a great time last time we were on your channel, and also when you came over to my channel, which we're going to make happen again in the near future, I would hope. Yeah, this has been great to get to know the 49ers YouTube sphere, if you will.
Definitely. Yeah, for all the people that are in the comment section right now, go subscribe to Rob Schuh. Great channel. I watched I was watching his breakdown of the game last night for a little bit. I watched a lot of his videos. It's a very well done, articulate, visually, aesthetically pleasing as well. He's got a nice setup going on there. I just want to comment on that. And yeah, me and Rob are going to try to do this as much as we can during the regular season. I would assume we could probably do stuff in the off season too, with training camp or free agency and the draft and all that stuff. I like collaborating, honestly, more than I like doing the solo thing. So the fact that you're open for it and you kind of been the one that's been kind of, asking, which is nice because it makes me feel like maybe I'm doing something okay. But yeah, I'm glad to have you back on. You said we off screen we were talking about a couple injury updates before we get started. That if you don't mind sharing with us.
No, not at all. Kyle Shanahan did his usual conference call day after the game, and a couple of items did get addressed on that call that feel relevant to the conversation that we wanted to bring to the table. First one being Jalen Moore's injury. Positive news there. He left the game with the knee injury, wherein Tom Compton stepped in his stead. That knee injury, there was no structural damage to the knee. So that puts him at more of a day-to-day, maybe week-to-week category, but it's not a long-term injury. One that was unexpected that didn't arise until this morning is a fractured finger for Elijah Mitchell. And before everyone panics, it is believed he is getting the pin inserted as we speak. The operation may already be completed. Doctors are optimistic he will be able to practice this week and could be able to play on Sunday against Jacksonville. So that is a sigh of relief for that unexpected injury that popped up today.
Definitely. He has a bruising style of running, just like Kyle and Debo have a bruising style of playing as well. And I just feel like people that play that way just lend themselves more to these type of things. Hopefully, like you said, it's not anything serious. Because I'll be honest with you, for a 6th-round pick, he might be the steal of the draft for the 49ers for their draft and one of the best players on their team right now, honestly. If you want to be completely honest as a fan, not just a homer, but as a fan. Even my brother likes him, and he's a Dolphins fan. So if my brother notices, and we're critical, just like, we're both critical of our teams, for him to say that, it means a lot. So,
yeah, he is absolutely surprised so far. And you could say that he is the most critical key to the 49ers' success. Without a player like Elijah Mitchell, and Raheem Mostert was a player like Elijah Mitchell, without that speed getting to the outside, the zone run scheme is not nearly as effective. So he's a critical component.
Definitely. And I just wanted to say, to someone like Luke Luna, I am one of those people that's pretty negative and doubts, the direction of this franchise. So last night's win did help me kind of become a little bit more positive, but we got to keep it going. You know what I mean? This, it can't just be, we did this when we beat the, who the heck did we beat? That was really bad. And then we came out
Chicago.
Yeah. And then we came out, played flat the next week. So I'm willing to eat crow as much as possible. But this team has to prove that they can string together some wins against not just good teams, but teams that you should beat. So hopefully we can see that next week, and I'll continue to eat crow if that's possible. So
Right. That'll be the best tasting crow you've ever had. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Happy to do it. Happy to have a second serving if we can beat Jacksonville next week. And I think that that's a fair place to be. Even people like myself who are, pretty generally optimistic, or at least need to work myself up to a level of optimism in order to extract the type of joy that I want out of this game, out of football. I get myself to that point by the end of the week to where I'm optimistic again. But even for someone like me, this was the first game where they played 60 minutes of complete football. So it's fair to say that this is, not the norm. This is not what we've come to expect out of the 49ers so far this season. So I think it's right to be in that wait and see mode for people who are a bit more skeptical. They put 60 minutes together. Can they put 120 minutes together, right? Can they do it 2 weeks
Right.
in a row? It's a fair question.
I guess so. That kind of goes into my next topic is this was the most complete team win to me that we've had all season, from top to bottom, offensive, defensive, special teams. You name it. Everybody helped everybody in this game. The defense did their part, creating turnovers for a change. And the Niners offense didn't turn the ball over. A lot of people in the press conferences, a lot of the players keep talking about complementary football. And I think this was the best case of complementary football from both sides of the ball. You got the running game working. Kyle Shanahan has made it, makes it known that this is a running football team first, which I'm totally fine with. And it's a defensive game. So the Niners run game and the way that they run their offense complements their defense, because their defense, they can come out there, be out there short, get the quick turnaround, and get the offense back out on the field. So, when everything goes together and everything plays, when each side does their part, it's very fine. It's very nice. It looks good on, to us, and it produces victory. So hopefully they can keep it going. And yesterday's win to me was the best that they've played quite in a long time. This kind of has a 2019 vibe to it, even though I don't really want to bring that up too much.
No, but it really did. It felt like that. And I think that you're spot on. The 49ers are a team that is built to win this way. They are built to win playing complementary football. When you have a running game like they do at times, when they're able to stick to their identity, when they're able to do the things that they draw strength from, it creates this sort of whirlwind effect that then creates an entire atmosphere for the team. But this is also the type of team where if they commit too many boneheaded plays, a turnover here or there, penalties have certainly hurt them. They're not the type of offense that has shown themselves capable to overcome those types of mistakes. And so a mistake-free football game is really what the 49ers need. And you can see then how that's challenging, because it's pretty hard to play a game like they did last night. That was basically flawless. I mean, you could nitpick and you could draw out some things, and believe me, that there were some things they need to continue to clean up. But it's difficult to be flawless week in, week out. And the other thing that it's fair to call out is turnovers are somewhat random, right? I think Jimmy Ward put himself in the position to walk away with those 2 picks yesterday. I'm not taking any credit away. But if you look at the complete team stats, I was surprised for such a one-sided, lopsided game. Total yards, 49ers 335, Rams 278. Like, that's not a walloping. That is not first downs, which you would expect with the 49ers first drive that went, God, what was that? Like 18 plays, 93 yards. They had 20 first downs. LA had 16. It from a statistical standpoint, it was not a stomping in that regard, but it was a stomping. I mean, the game was absolutely a stomping. And so it did come down to some critical plays, and some of those are luck, right? I mean, it's been bad luck that the 49ers haven't gotten it, but last night was good luck.
Yeah, and the Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL. Let's be honest. We can, we might own them, so to speak, and we have their number and we're their daddy, whatever you want to say. The Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL. They're one of the most complete teams. So for the 49ers to kind of have the game that they did yesterday, it says a lot about the 49ers and shows what the Niners are capable of when they play complementary ball. But like the way that the Rams can score, and with a quick they can score quickly, where the Niners have a very long, drawn out, many plays in their drive, because the Niners just aren't as explosive as a team like the Rams, who can pretty much hit you from anywhere. Now, without Robert Woods, that might hurt them a little bit, but they're still, with a quarterback like Matt Stafford, who can pretty much get the ball anywhere he needs it to be. He's got an elite level arm. To beat them the way we did was awesome, but we got to be honest, they are still one of the best teams in the NFL, probably top 5. So just got to take one game at a time. We beat a really, really good team. We finally won at home after over a year. Last victory, actually, I think came against the Rams. So it was a complete game victory for me. I think for you too. And they got to keep it going. This can't be like a one and done thing. This has to be done over the next, we have 8 games left in the season. The Niners need to really play their best football. I feel like sometimes the season starts in November, and this is kind of what kind of looks like for the 49ers. So hopefully the Niners can keep this going and go against Jacksonville next week with the same piss and vinegar that they had this week, and take care of a team they should.
Yeah, you have to play the way in which they did and executed last night, because to your point about the Rams and the speed with which they can score, when they were down 17, it still felt like a game. I was nervous. The whole second half, I had that feeling of man, we got to stay on top of this. We need a full 60 minutes. The first 30 is not going to be enough to beat this Rams team. But if you flip the script, had the Niners been down 17, it would have felt pretty hopeless, because at that point you cannot, you cannot execute the game plan the way in which the 49ers want to, which is chewing up the clock, running. You look at the statistics for the run game for both Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell. Both averaged under 4 yards a carry. Elijah Mitchell was something like 3.5. And then Jeff Wilson was under 3. These were hard-fought drives, just barely. A lot of clutch third down conversions. Yeah, it was, it was a close game, even though it was a walloping. So the 49ers have to carry that forward into the next game. That is essential.
I feel like the Niners are more of a front runner. They play better with the lead than they do when they have to come from behind. I just feel like their offense is built to, once it gets a lead, bleed it, and then, hit some play action here and there, get some scores, and then have the defense come back out, being rested and go to work, getting after the passer. When they have to come from behind, I just honestly think, Jimmy's just not that kind of quarterback. He can do it from time to time, but I feel like Jimmy's at his best when the run game's working, the defense is on fire, and he can play complementary ball. His ball placement last night was, for the most part, except for the 2 throws he tried to squeeze in against Jalen Ramsey, or 2 or 3. Right. Jimmy played pretty well last night. I was pleasantly surprised.
So clutch. And let's be fair that Ramsey is Ramsey can make the best quarterbacks look bad. So yeah, throwing against him is rough going, no matter who you are.
At least Jimmy had the stones to do it. Usually he doesn't even take those shots. So that gives me a little bit of, I'll take a little bit off my, with my tone with Jimmy when he actually challenges a guy like Jalen Ramsey and doesn't, just shy away from it.
Yeah, I think Jimmy, I think he derives a lot of his confidence from the team. You can almost see it, that he's the type of quarterback where if things start to go badly for the team, he panics a little bit. Mm-hmm. He ends up making the errant throw, the foolish interception, the seemingly, direct throw to a linebacker, whatever it may be. But when they're rolling and they need clutch performance from him, and it just so happens that many of those performances have come against the Rams, but you could go back to the Saints game of 2019. There are games where Jimmy is clutch and has to complete some really critical conversions to keep the 49ers rolling. But I think the thing that I noticed there is that he sort of requires the team to get rolling to then motivate him. I don't see him as being unflappable. It's easier than you would like to see to rattle Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, he played a great game yesterday, but I think
Phenomenal.
the team played a great game in general. And like you said, I think he just feeds everybody. They all feed off of each other. I was telling my brother, I said, the way that the Niners play offense and how the Rams play offense, I said, the Rams remind me a lot of the Golden State Warriors. You know what I mean? Like, they just move the ball, they hit the threes. It's just fast break offense. Where the 49ers are more of a grind it out, like get the ball inside to the center and have him back down somebody and, try to make a play that way.
Yeah, play like physical, like get to the line a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like two different eras of football. The Niners still kind of play a little bit of that old school, 70s, 80s, and 90s, early 2000s football. And the Rams are the modern game, which is we barely run the football and we throw it, 45 times a game. Yeah. And we're super exciting and we score a lot of points. So Niners and Rams, they don't like they're so different. And
so different.
For the Niners to be able to impose their will with their type of game was very impressive last night.
It is. I struggle with this because I think it's what gives the 49ers an edge is that they have built a team that when they compete well are doing just that. They're outperforming the other team physically. They're sort of dominating in that way. And so many defenses throughout the NFL are built in the same way that the Rams are, to get after the passer, to get after the quarterback on long third downs, right? To stop them early, put them in third and long, and then just go after them. And the 49ers have sort of zigged while everyone else in the league is zagging. Now, it hasn't worked out so far this season, but this game to me illustrates who I thought the 49ers were.
Definitely. Hopefully they can keep it going. I feel like they play the perfect opponent next week to keep this ball rolling. They just got to kind of come out with the same intensity. I know it's a cross-country trip, and it's they have one less day to prepare and to have rest. But I mean, that's the
10
NFL
a.m. start.
Yep. But everybody deals with it, man. Everybody deals with it. So you gotta, you get paid a lot of money to deal with these kind of things. So you just got to go out there and just do it and perform and don't make any excuses because nobody else.
Number 76, play like a champion. No excuses.
Exactly. Speaking of playing like a champion, I just got to say to the people, including myself, and maybe in some of these broadcasters who like to, take shots at Deebo Samuel for not being a quote unquote, big time receiver. Now that he's healthy this year, knock on wood that he stays healthy, Deebo is starting to transform into probably one of the better receivers in the National Football League right before our eyes. They use him differently, because of the way he's built. They use him in the running game, but even in the pass game, he is, coming out of college, a lot of the talk was he was like a slant guy, like he could take a slant and go the distance.
Right.
And he, as a pro, has become that guy. He kind of is a throwback. He reminds me a little bit of the John Taylor, Jerry Rice, where they take a 5-yard slant and go 80 yards. He's right in that makeup. He's tough. He absorbs contact. And to me, he's transforming into one of the best receivers in the NFL. I just want to get your opinion on that.
I think that you're spot on with that. I was very high on Deebo coming into the season. I mean, just to illustrate my preference for him, I'm in, regrettably, 6 fantasy football leagues. Too many, I think. But in 4 of those 6, I have Deebo on my team because I just knew that he was primed for 1,000-yard receiving game. Now, receiving year. I had no idea that he was going to have the monster season that he's had thus far. To be able to surpass Jerry Rice in any statistical category, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a cleaner game day uniform. Whatever you surpass Jerry in, that's impressive to me. I get people's, reluctance in getting there. Deebo has fought through some things. He has had rough starts to seasons last year, certainly. Didn't have the beginning to the year. You'd like to attribute that to the injury. But again, you have a physical type of player. And much like Kittle, much like Mostert, much like Elijah Mitchell. I mean, Deebo Samuel, we didn't mention it, but he has a shin contusion, a shin bruise. And I'm guessing with the way in which he runs, it's probably a mean bruise. I mean, it is probably a monster and nothing to scoff at, but he's a tough guy. He's playing through it. It will be interesting to see just how richly he is rewarded for his efforts this season. I mean, he is primed now for a big bag at the end of the year, especially if the 49ers are able to somehow save this season. I would think that you would have to attribute the offensive MVP to Deebo Samuel, regardless of what happens this year. But if the 49ers somehow claw their way into the playoffs, which for me, that alone, I don't care if they go one and done. That would be huge for me. I would be ecstatic. If they do, you would have to point to Deebo as being sort of the ballast that kept this ship upright when they were in some choppy frickin' waters, man. This looked like the Titanic headed towards an iceberg. Now this game can turn things around a bit. They could avoid the collision with that iceberg. But I think if they do, you have to point to Deebo Samuel. You have to point to the year he's having. You have to point to the inspiration other players can draw from the way in which he's playing. Just been so lights out.
Definitely. CG Ruthless says he reminds a lot of people, and he reminds me of myself. It reminds me of Anquan Bolden.
Ooh,
he definitely has. He has more of a home run threat though than Bolden did. Bolden was more of your possession, throw a quick slant for 5 yards and he'll rip it out of the DB's hands. Whereas Deebo, he has a chance to make a house call on freaking every catch that he has.
It's unreal.
Yeah, corners don't want to touch him. They do not. Like I wouldn't if I was a corner.
Yeah, I would say if I were comparing the two, much more explosive to your point than Anquan Bolden, can take it to the house from any point on the field. And then the other piece would be Anquan, the possession receiver. I would trust Anquan a bit more in traffic. I want to applaud Deebo for what he did last night. Some of those catches in traffic and receiving the hit, absorbing the hit, immediately following. Good Lord, I was just out of my seat going wild for those. But, he has had his issue in other games and other seasons with dropping some passes that he shouldn't, and Anquan certainly never did.
Yeah, he definitely had the dropsies earlier this year. Yesterday wasn't that case. He played as well as I've seen him play. My only question with him going forward is, I heard Grant make a comment about, not giving second contracts to guys that have injury history. He is one person that does have injury history, but I don't know if he's like an outlier. If he continues to stay healthy this year and produce, regardless of what happens to the 49ers, you would think that they have to reward him. The Niners, they do a lot of things. They make a lot of stupid decisions front office wise and draft wise, but they have made some great decisions as far as rewarding players that have performed on the field, who are their guys who they picked. The way I look at it is if he continues to perform and he stays healthy, yeah, you're right. You got to give him the bag, man. He deserves it. So
you have to. I see this as very comparable to George Kittle, that George Kittle plays a physical style of football that leads to injuries, soft tissue injuries, collision-based injuries. I mean, that's the way in which he plays. And the way in which he plays is a big portion of what makes him so special. So Deebo could absorb fewer hits. If he did so, he would have fewer yak yards. We wouldn't talk about him in the same way that we do. He wouldn't physically dominate opposing defenses in the way that he does, playing the style that he does. And I think that comes with inherent risk of injury. So for me, I'm okay with that leading to on average, 3 games a year missed. Because the NFL average is 2 something. We just went up from 16 to 17 games. The NFL average will increase with that as well. So it's pretty common for players to miss a couple of games. For me, as long as you can limit that to 3 or 4 within a season, with what they bring in the other 13 games, it's just too much to pass up. And I think to the point of Deebo carrying this team through the first half of this season so far, and hopefully into a competitive wild card race, you have to reward those players. It was such a mistake from a psychological standpoint to trade DeForest Buckner, let alone from a physical standpoint and from a roster construction standpoint, from an emotional health of the team standpoint. You say what you're looking for in your players, and then you have one guy who basically is the billboard for what you say you want in a player, and then you trade him, that sends a weird message to the locker room. Like, if I'm exactly who you want me to be, if I am an all-star year in, year out, you're going to take advantage of that and trade me away? Like, how committed am I then in that scenario? So I hope that they learned their lesson from that transaction.
Definitely. It's always a risky tightrope with these players who have these injury issues and, allocating a lot of money towards them. But like you said, if you can kind of accept the fact that he's going to miss a couple games a year, but he's also going to produce for you and be physical and help you not just in the pass game, but in the run game, then yeah, you have to reward people. I think that the DeForest Buckner trade was probably one of the bigger shots on the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, black eye on their resume that they've had so far, other than, not really winning too much. But
right.
Yeah, they have a way to make it right. Yeah, we have enough. We can get on them enough for that. But, a good way to get us off your back is to reward a great player financially for what he does for you and the team.
Yeah, especially one that just shows so much heart on the field. That's one thing I look for that's an intangible, and I think makes a huge difference in a game that is so violent, right? I say this a lot, but I think NFL fans do take for granted the idea that these players could literally lose their livelihood on any play out there on the field. I mean, look at Ryan Shazier, right? It is risky being out on an NFL field. You do need dogs. You do need people like Debo who are going to snatch chains off of the necks of the opposing defenses and leave them not wanting more. That's essential.
Speaking of someone who the Niners need and someone who's, a very important piece of their team that maybe I have underestimated or undervalued, it was Jimmy Ward. I didn't realize how much the Niners missed him until he didn't play last week and how well he played this week. Seems like a calming influence within the defense in the secondary. I think him and Hufanga make a really good duo, honestly. And those two interceptions, the first one, maybe not so much, but that second interception definitely was a momentum stealer and kind of put the Niners on a fast track to a victory that they really, really needed. What are your takes on Jimmy Ward? I've been critical of him and his injuries and his, being in and out of the lineup. But when Jimmy Ward plays, for the most part, he plays really well within the run and the pass game. So I was really impressed with him last night.
Yeah, Jimmy Ward had a rough start to his career. And I think a lot of 49er fans carried that injury history into years where he was primarily healthy, right? We had this idea of who he was and how much time he missed as a player. And I think it took a lot of people longer to appreciate what he brings to the table because of that. And I can't fault them. I mean, it was an extensive and strange injury history. It appeared to be someone who was lacking vitamin D, right? I mean, as a pale individual myself, I can say that some of us need more sun than others, and it seemed like Debo needed to get that vitamin D, drink more, not Debo, that Jimmy needed more vitamin D, needed to drink that milk. But it was fluke injuries as well. And you can say that looking back now that they were just that this is the NFL, it's a violent game. The broken bones are something that are probably not a recurring injury, but they come from playing a physical brand of football. I thought that the secondary, the week prior, really felt the loss of both safeties in that the communication was terrible. Tart and Ward have been playing together since what? I mean, they went to high school together. They have a lot of unspoken communication. They know what the other is going to do. To have both out and to try and replace them, the secondary looked disjointed. Getting Jimmy Ward back seemed to be a stabilizing factor in the secondary against the Rams. I like to watch the communication on defense because I used to watch a lot of Inside the NFL when it was on Showtime, and Ray Lewis would talk about when watching film, he would break it down and always talk about what's the chatter that's going on between defenders because they need to be on the same page. That's the most important thing for defenses is communication, communication, communication. I need to know what your assignment is. You need to know what my assignment is so that we trust each other to execute what we need to do. And then as a team, the effort comes together. And what I saw last night was fantastic. It was great communication. I saw very few plays where anybody looked like they didn't know what was going on. And that led to very few breakdowns. And quite honestly, that's just the type of defense the 49ers need to play is mistake-free football. They need to be able to get off the field and not stay out there for extended drives and allow their offense to control time of possession.
Yeah, their defense definitely looked good last night. I mean, I will pick apart a couple things. I'm starting to think that Kaijuan is more of a liability in coverage than I really realized before. He just, I don't know. With Diamador Lenore, ascending, hopefully, he might be somebody that you could move on from. And the secondary, or excuse me, and the pass rush, other than Nick Bosa, there isn't really much happening right there. So even though we won and we played very well on both sides of the ball, I mean, if you want to be honest, I still see those things even when we're winning that concern me, especially again when you go against great teams who have great passing attacks. So because he had a lot of time at some points last night, Stafford, and the Niners were getting gouged on some pretty big passes. So pass rush definitely can get better. And their defensive back play, maybe not safety wise, but corner can always improve too. But again, they're going against a really elite offense with a really good coach. So sometimes you have to give the offense credit for what they're doing too. It's kind of like a fine line you have to kind of balance on. So,
right.
Yeah, I was definitely like, on some stuff, but like offensively, like I said, I think we're a front running team. I think we're good when we're ahead. I think that's the type of ball we're meant to play. So, if we're going to keep winning, and that's how we got to go about it. We got to get up early. We have to score early. We have to come out ready to, do some damage early on in the game and not go 3 and outs on 2, 3, 4 consecutive drives, because we're just not built to be the team that can come back. We're more of, like I said, a front runner team. When we get ahead, we run the ball and we play action off of it, and we look damn good when we do it. So, yeah, I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
No,
with everything last night.
Interesting, your observation of Kaijuan Williams. I have the other. I find Kaijuan to be a very heady, very intelligent player. He may have lost a step this season, but I'll have to keep an eye on him in more film review to see if I'm operating from not a recency bias, but a past history bias instead, and see if I'm just not seeing what's really going on there. But we are in agreement about the pass rush. Let's be clear that game set up for what should have then been a sack lunch for all of the defensive linemen, right? It's what you hope for. You get ahead, be able to then rush the passer because you forced them into passing downs and just feast. I mean, not a mobile quarterback in Matthew Stafford. You're up big. You should have been hitting him a lot, and the 49ers only sacked him twice, and one of those in garbage time. Actually, both of those very close to the end of the game, with Bosa's bull rush and then Arden Key actually coming from defensive tackle, playing the inside, not coming off of the edge, which I found to be interesting. But for the remainder of the game, it was concerning because I don't believe, other than left tackle, I don't think this is a wildly talented Rams offensive line, right? If you're pointing to any weaknesses in their team, I think you have to look at O-line. Maybe I'm mistaken there, but it was worrisome. That's supposed to be the strength of the defense. And when it's not there, I think it's worth taking note of, because had the game played out in any other fashion, that would have really come into play.
Yeah, and the Rams throw the ball so much. You have so many opportunities. I don't know if it's schematically something they can change, whether they got to do some more zone blitzing or stunts or whatever. Nick Bosa is really like our saving grace, and even he can't do it all. I mean, the guy gets held every other play. There was one that was clear as day, right, when they were showing a replay where he was getting choked across the neck. And my brother's like, "Why are you yelling? Your guys are up." I was like, "Did you just see that replay? He was getting held." Like, I was so mad. I'm like, I know we were up like 21 points, but I didn't care. It's still like, yeah, it's concerning to me because, they said that they did all this and that, to improve their depth along the defensive line in the offseason. and they haven't produced any real big dividends. Arden Key hasn't really done much. Samson Abucom hasn't really done much, and nobody. It's just been Bosa. And then the fact that we've lost D Ford again, which is not a surprise.
No, unfortunately.
That's the one thing that John Lynch really gets on my nerves with is, they go and they re-sign people that have these. I mean, like a guy like, say, Jason Verrett or D Ford, and they're counting on them to like be available. And I just think that's just a foolish way to, build a roster. I think guys like that should almost be extra. They should be a luxury, not like I just had, like I said, I told you the last time we streamed with the whole Jason Verrett thing. I had a feeling something was going to happen with him, and it did. I feel like, without Nick Bosa, this team, I don't know if they'd ever get to the quarterback. But last night, even in a big victory, even in a dominant performance, that is the one thing that really is getting to me. I don't know what they can do to change it. I don't know if, defensive coordinator, his name is escaping me right now. DeMeco Ryans can do something schematically to change that. Because sometimes when you win, things get swept under the rug, so you don't really focus on it. I'm not that kind of guy. I always kind of focus on everything. So I don't know.
Well, and the reality is, if you don't focus on it, it comes back to bite you, right? If you just sweep it under the rug, if you just say, "Well, we won," but ignore a glaring issue, that's the type of thing that absolutely comes back and bites you in the butt when you're playing what should be an inferior team the next week against Jacksonville. You've got to be able to make Trevor Lawrence uncomfortable. Nothing worse for a rookie than to get continually hit, and it doesn't feel as if the 49ers are getting that type of pressure. It's a strange phenomenon with the level of talent that we have there. Back to your roster building piece, I just want to agree that the Jason Verrett was frustrating in that I love the guy, and when he is healthy, is a dominant cornerback. And to your point, had they merely had someone as the cornerback one who had a longer history of health, and Jason Verrett was your cornerback two, who is a number one corner, but playing at a discounted rate, right? You're getting him for $5 million for a reason because of the extensive injury history. And then Emmanuel Mosley is your third. Now that's a great strategy. Now you've taken a bargain basement type of low risk, high reward situation, and there's huge upside. When he's your cornerback one, now it's high risk, high reward. And the high risk bit us in the butt this time because what we all thought could happen did happen.
Yeah, I think when you have key positions and you use, you'd have bargain basement deals because guys are injury prone and you use that on key positions. I think it's just a foolish way to build a roster. Like you said, make the guy be a luxury, not, a needed piece. I feel like when you do that, you just... And then to hear Kyle talk about, we had so much of our offense built with Raheem Mostert and this and that, and now we're going to, pretty much go back to the drawing board. Like you should have a plan B, knowing guys have extensive injury history instead of being always caught off guard, which I find absolutely confusing. But, I guess they try to look at things in a positive light. And they try to look at the glass half full type mentality, where I'm always kind of looking at it half empty. But you to just put that much onus on guys that have had that extensive history and put them in key positions, and then you lose them, and then you're like, oh, what are we going to do now? And you're scrambling. It's kind of like most fans could see that coming. Most analysis or analysts can see that coming, but the team can't see it coming. Kind of gets to me.
As it should. It's frustrating when you can see something coming, but it seems like the organization cannot. Just to go back to the defensive line and keep my end of it on the positive so that I'm the glass half full, you can be the glass half empty. I have to give a shout out to my man, barbecue sauce, Big 93, DJ Jones. That tackle in open field on a fake frickin' punt, unreal. A 300-pound linebacker. He just squared him up. I mean, just textbook tackle. DJ Jones is my hero for that frickin' move. That was spectacular. I was losing my stuff when that
I
happened.
think I tweeted you after you tweeted something. That's a whole lot of man to
Yes, it
move or
is.
bring to get someone to bring somebody down. He is a large human being, and to get that all
Large.
moving in one direction and take someone down with it. Yeah, that was a big turning point in that game, because the Rams, it's almost like they're very, very aggressive. That's the
Yes.
one thing I will say about the Rams that I love about their coach and the way that they play offense is they're always aggressive. They're always going to kind of, try to tilt the game in their favor with an aggressive play. But yeah, that was an awesome play. I think that was a tide turner for sure. The Niners had a couple big tide turning plays in this game, because like you said, the Rams are a fast break team that can score a lot of points very quickly. So the Niners needed to keep making those kind of game altering plays, and they did that last night. So props to your man. I got to try some of that barbecue sauce.
Yes.
I'm a big
Hey,
barbecue
I
guy.
always show it because it's from Big Dave, his dad, and they seem like a high quality family that's all about charity, and a portion of their proceeds go to charity. So a good cause
Nice.
through and through.
Definitely. I wanted to get your take as we transition here on Eli Mitchell as to me, coming into form as probably the Niners' top running back now and possibly going into the future. And how happy were you to see Jeff Wilson Jr. back?
I'm thrilled to start with the second part of that question. I'm thrilled to see Jeff Wilson Jr. back. People describe him going
I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, him going to a dark place game day. That mindset, I think, is the type of mindset more of the Niner players need to have. I think that someone who brings that to the game can influence others, can set a tone for the offense. So even though you look at his yards per carry, under 3 yards per carry, and you say, well, couldn't those have gone to the rookie? Couldn't you have gotten Trey Sermon involved in this game finally, right? Wouldn't he be capable of getting 2.8 yards per carry? You would think so. But mindset matters. And whatever you want to say about Jeff Wilson Jr., I'm a big fan. I think that he is a complete player, can catch the ball, as we saw against the Cardinals in 2019, is clutch, can fight for yards, can get the hard yards, is a great goal line back. There are people that may not feel that same way about him, but I think they have to acknowledge what someone with that fire coming in can do for an organization, in particular a team that's struggling to find their own identity. So I thought that having Jeff Wilson Jr. back was huge. I was a little surprised that, again, got 0 snaps for our other rookie, Trey Sermon. And certainly at the end of the game, now that we learned that Elijah Mitchell had a fractured finger at some point, you would have hoped that you could have given some of those last few carries to the rookie, spread it out so that you keep Elijah Mitchell healthy. But man, what a steal. 6th-round pick. It's hard not to draw some comparisons to Terrell Davis, who was also a 6th-round pick, but it's too early to do that, and it's unfair to both players. Player comparisons are always unfair to somebody, either the player you're comparing them to or the player that you're talking about in modern day. So Elijah Mitchell, he is what I saw in the highlight tapes. When I watched his college film to try and get a sense of what his ceiling could be within this offense, he is headed toward that ceiling. He fits so well within this scheme, and it was just such a find for the 49ers to land him in the 6th round. You think there aren't many positions that you're taking a 6th rounder and really expecting them to make the team unless it's maybe special teams. He is, aside from Debo so far, the most important offensive player. Well, maybe you could say Trent Williams. It would be, 2A
Definitely.
and 2B with Elijah Mitchell. But man, what a special effort by that guy. And toughness. The idea that he's played through a shoulder injury, rib injuries. Now he's got the finger, but it looks like he's going to fricking fight through that too. You need that mindset. You need that dog. I'm pleased.
I feel like the Niners, the way that they determine of who plays and who doesn't, they're a meritocracy, honestly.
Yes.
I figure it doesn't matter where you're drafted or, how high you were picked. The best players are the ones that play, and I honestly feel that way. I feel that there's a reason why Trey Sermon isn't playing. I definitely believe that. I feel like there may be practice issues or maybe an inability to, I don't know, learn how to block on passing downs, something.
Yeah, I've heard
because for him
fumble
to be
issues in practice, and that could explain end of the game trying to salt it away. Last thing you want to do is have a
just
fumble.
turn the
So
ball over. And meritocracy, it might not be popular with fans when as far as drafting goes and assets given up, but in the end, the best players need to be on the field. And if Elijah Mitchell is that player, then tough doo doo. I mean, it's to me, I'm glad he's playing, and I'm very critical of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. You know that. You've known me, about a month or so. We've been going back and forth here, and you know that I'm super critical, but I'm going to always give credit to people that deserve it. And
right,
that find for that running back in that place, their last pick of this past draft, unbelievable.
could be season saving.
Yes. Hopefully he can, his finger boo-boo isn't too bad, because we need him. We definitely need him.
Yes, we do. Yeah, I love the approach the 49ers have to it. And I think the frustration for the fans is that they don't have complete access to the practices. If the NFL opened that up to where somehow fans could get access to practice reps, but opposing teams couldn't see them to give away game planning, then you would understand. Then you would see what's happening in practice. You would see someone struggling, and it would be clear to fans that, yes, they are playing Elijah Mitchell and not playing Trey Sermon, because Elijah Mitchell is obviously balling out and Trey Sermon is struggling with some things. But because of all the secrecy involved with the NFL, and for good reason, we're not seeing that. We don't get, all we saw of Trey Sermon was he got the vast majority of the first team reps in preseason when we did have access to considerable tape. And it would appear when he got in due to injury, he was able to make something of that. So that's the only information we as fans have. But to your point, from the organizational standpoint, they have a lot more information. The issue arises when fans are losing trust in that organization. A lot of fans losing trust in John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and then not having faith that they're playing the correct people, even though they have more information than we do.
Yeah, it's in the end, we don't really know that much. I don't know that much. None of us who do YouTube or people that cover the team, we don't really know, because we shouldn't be privy to that information, because if we were privy to it, then the rest of the league would be privy to it, and you'd have no advantage. So, like I said, it's meritocracy, and I'm glad it is that way, because if you played guys based on their draft position, that'd be a bad decision. Put it that way. It was, dude.
Yes.
I mean, in some ways, I wish they would do stuff with the defensive backs that they've drafted, but again, maybe they're privy to more information that we have than say the team does.
Yeah. But that's a fair question, right? The defensive backs. I think that's different, because now you're talking about players on the field who we can see with our own eyes are not playing well. And so then it is fair to say, well, could it really be much worse if you put the rookies in? So I think that you're warranted to want to see more from the defensive backs, because you're looking at Josh Norman, Dre Kirkpatrick getting playing time. Obviously, Dre Kirkpatrick was not in the game yesterday. But you know what you're getting from Josh Norman. You know it's not improving. I mean, he'll learn the scheme. He could operate better within the defense. But like physically speaking, he's not getting better. He is getting worse at his age. So I do think that in that scenario, it may be fair to question why not see more of the young guys. And as the season progresses, I would expect that we probably do.
Yeah, the way the season's playing out right now, as far as, seeing drafted players, I feel like if the Niners continue to play the way that they are, there's a good chance we won't see much of Trey if this season just continues to play the way that it is. And as far as the defensive backs go, I feel like pass rush can hide a lot of that. And even if the rookies were in there, they could really be aided by a great pass rush. A lot of these veterans, like you say, they are who they are. Josh Norman is who he is. He's a solid veteran corner, but to be your number one or number two at this point in his career is just, it's foolhardy. But I feel like if the pass rush was strong and aggressive and was like it was in 2019, I mean, let's be honest. Our secondary was pretty decent in 2019, but it wasn't anywhere near to be a shutdown secondary. I mean, Sherman got exposed in the Super Bowl when the Niners couldn't get a rush on Pat Mahomes, and he got beat by Sammy Watkins. So,
yeah, Sherman was a perfect player to the heady type of player that when you have an elite pass rush is exactly who you want, because he knows where to put himself to be in position to make the big plays when the quarterback is rushed because of that pass rush coming at him. But without a pass rush, I mean, to your point of, covering up average cornerbacks with an elite pass rush, the opposite is absolutely true as well. If you have an underachieving pass rush, it can make even the most dominant corners look bad, right? You can only cover for so long before it's impossible to cover everybody. 5-6 seconds into the snap, forget about it.
Yeah. Guys can change direction so many times within that time period. I don't care if you're Deion Sanders. Eventually someone's going to leak open. So
right.
Everything works together. It's a rush and cover game. It's a cover and rush game, whatever way you want to slice it. They work in unison and they work together, and one without the other is, it definitely shows. What was I going to say? So talking about players that played well yesterday and people that showed up, I got to say, and I've been critical of him, Kittle had a Kittle type day yesterday.
Yes, he did.
Run game, pass game, great touchdown catch. I'd like to see him go up and get it like that. He's not really known for that type of thing.
No.
He's not a jump and leap and grab a ball out of the air against a bunch of defenders. So I was pretty pumped about that. But man, his block on, oh God, why are the names escaping me today? The pass rusher Von Miller, where he put Von Miller into the dirt. And I think Von Miller had to get air after that one. So,
I do really recall seeing him getting that air. I didn't realize it was after the pancake, but that's deserved.
You really miss him when he's not in there. And now you realize how valuable he really is. Even for a guy like me who's super critical and wants to, see a guy play every down of every snap all season because he gets paid a lot of money. That's just me. Right. But he's a valuable thing. He's a valuable player in the pass game, and in the run game, he's invaluable. You can't be any more valuable in the run game than a guy like Kittle is. I think that in the game, he was out for a play, and they had, I don't know if it was Charlie Warner or somebody else in, and I think either Aaron Donald, I forgot who the player was that just drove him into the backfield and blew a running play up.
I think it was Aaron Donald, and it was like 2 yards behind the line where he tackled whoever had the ball at that point.
And the guy just got completely buckled under his power. And then you see a guy like Kittle. Kittle's not a very big dude, but Kittle plays with great, positioning, leverage. And leverage, and he just makes really big guys look really stupid. Because like I said, he's a skinny guy, but he plays with great leverage. And man, sometimes there's things that happen in games that you don't see that can be tide turning or momentum shifting. And when you see blocks like that from a guy who makes as much money as he does and how selfless he is, when he's healthy, to me, he might not be the quote unquote best tight end in the NFL, but to me, he's the most complete tight end in the NFL. From catching the ball to run. Kelsey might be the guy that gets a lot more catches, but that's also the way Kansas City runs their offense. The Niners don't run that kind of offense, but Kittle or Kelsey in a run game he can sniff Kittle's jock. Kittle's just a dominant run game tight end. And he also just happens to be able to make plays with his, catching the ball too. So big, huge game from Kittle. I'm so happy. And I'll eat, like I said, I'm always happy to eat crow, and I'll eat tons of it. Hopefully you can keep playing like this. Definitely, man. I'm full already. What was your opinion on all that?
He was lights out. They highlighted it a couple of times, but just no one, maybe Juice, comes close. But those blocks, those move blocks in space, it's unreal. The idea that he can come around the line at full speed and just square up and cleanly block Pro Bowl type defenders on a regular basis is wild. I thought that he came out with a different attitude than he has had so far this season. I thought there was an anger in his eyes that's been missing. And I think that type of fire benefits George Kittle. He plays with that type of fire. He blocks with that type of enthusiasm often. But if I'm his teammate, and I see that look in his eyes, that's different. In the huddle, like it's different. It sets a tone, and the Niners needed a tone. I thought George Kittle did that last night. You had his first career occasion for a touchdown 2 games in a row. That's pretty wild that George Kittle, as good as he is, has never had touchdowns in consecutive games. To your point of the catch he made, phenomenal. It looked so natural to him, but you don't see him do that often. He's not a red zone threat, right? And speaking of red zone, it's wild to me that while the 49ers have had few trips to said red zone, they are the #1 team in the league in red zone efficiency. Far and away the #1 team as far as once they're in the red zone, the percentage of touchdowns and scoring that they have versus other NFL teams. So wildly efficient in the red zone, which used to be an issue for this team. You would hope that that means George Kittle could continue this touchdown streak because they're being so efficient in the red zone, because they seem to be getting the ball to George Kittle when they're in close. I thought that he, on the offensive side of the ball, was one of the key players that really set the tone for the game. And I thought that this was a statement game. This was a game that was all about tone. It was all about physicality. It was all about the 49ers coming out and saying to the Rams, you can't stop us.
That's exactly how they played. Couple more topics here before we wrap this up. I wanted to get your opinion on some individual performances that I noticed. Trent Williams being one, Talanoa Hufanga 2, and El Shair, who I thought was bringing the thunder last night on many tackles, something we haven't seen since, I would say, the Navarro Bowman era, or the Patrick Willis era, just a linebacker that brings some thump into his tackles, because the Niners have a lot of undersized linebackers, so you don't always see those crushing blows. But those 3 guys, to me, had great individual games last night. I just want to get your opinion on them.
Yeah. Trent Williams, just a beast. The year he's having, people were skeptical of the contract he was awarded based on the age of the individual. And that's fair. You won't be able to truly judge the contract until you get to the tail end of it. But many NFL contracts start well and end badly. It's a trend within the league, in particular as players age. But my God, does he deserve that money this year with the way in which he's performing? He is the most elite left tackle in the league, and he continues to show it on a weekly basis. The things that he does are spectacular. And again, back to setting a tone, I thought that he was another one of those core players that set the tone for the 49ers. If you're going to run the ball 44 freaking times in a game, you need to have maulers out there. And Trent Williams was that mauler from the left tackle position. Hufanga, I thought it was interesting that I saw Pro Football Focus had him as the highest rated defender for the 49ers. Not Jimmy Ward with the 2 picks and the pick 6 and the one-on-one lockdown coverage that he had on many offensive players for the Rams last night. He was number 2. It was Hufanga who was the highest rated PFF. Now, say what you want about PFF. It is very much opinion, right? They take metrics and add in their own personal observation, which they then turn into a statistic, like proximity to the quarterback for quarterback hurries and things of that nature. So you could debate it, but what it illustrates is he had a damn fine game. And the eye test meets up with that, right? The eye test to me says Jimmy Ward had a better game, but Hufanga was phenomenal. And I wonder if it is that combination of Ward and Hufanga that gives him the confidence that Jimmy's got everybody aligned, that Jimmy has communicated to the remainder of the secondary what position they need to be in so that they can just then play with confidence. And that's exactly what Talanoa seemed to do, flying to the ball confidently, just consistently in the right spot. He seems to have the intangible football instincts that make you a great ball hawk. I don't know if his speed is going to be a hampering factor in his success. I know everybody keeps drawing back to it, but that hasn't been the limiting factor for him so far, in my humble opinion. I thought that the limiting factor in games where he wasn't great was just being out of position, which you would think comes much more from inexperience within the defensive scheme. That once he's confident in the defense, he'll be able to allow his ball skills to dominate his play. And Alshire, his game was epitomized by the bent face mask for me. After that big hit, it was great. They did a close-up. I think Eric Crocker saw it as I did as well, called it out on Twitter. He had a little, after that, just shot. And there were several of them. So if you were going back, you'd have to watch carefully. But he goes in and his helmet collides with the running back, just stuffs him, and then gets up, and you can see a little divot in the top of the face mask. And that's a lot of force. When you have bent your face mask, that is a lot of force being exhaled onto the offensive player. I do not want to get hit like that ever. I don't want to deliver a hit like that. That probably hurt him delivering that hit. But again, it's back to tone. The 49ers physically dominated the Rams yesterday. Just sent them packing with very little hope, making them question whether they're even capable of matching up against this team in week 17. It was that type of physical dominance that instills doubt and embarrassment on the opponent. And God damn, it was refreshing to see from the 49ers perspective.
Definitely. And it gives other teams, maybe a blueprint of how to not necessarily stop the Rams, but maybe slow them down.
Yeah.
Both offensively and defensively, because the Niners played as close to a perfect game yesterday, offensively and defensively, that you can play. They didn't give up a lot of points. They didn't give up a ton of yards. Their passing game, the Rams never got into a real big, they didn't get into rhythm. Part of that was that they made a lot of mistakes too. They dropped a lot of passes. So some of their things that happened to them were self-inflicted. But
right.
As far as on offense, the Niners dictated this game, offense to their defense. And it kind of goes into my last topic is whatever the Niners did this week, it doesn't mean anything if they lose to Jacksonville next week. The Niners got to take what they did this week and roll it over to next week, which is they dictate the circumstances of the game. They run the football. They dominate. They play an aggressive style of offense, and then give their defense time to rest. And when the defense is on the field, the defense go hunt, rush the quarterback. And I feel like I said, if they come out next week and they play flat and they don't come out with the same piss and vinegar and anger and intensity, it's not going to mean crap, because this, as big as this victory was, it only is made more important by the next victory, because then you have a chance to go to 500, and then right there you pretty much control your own destiny.
1000%. I am still in celebration mode today. I am most definitely in feel good. Nothing can penetrate my shield at the moment. I am 1000% exuberant for the 49ers, and I need to acknowledge that what you're saying here is spot on. The 49ers must carry forth this momentum. You mentioned that the Rams sort of had a case of the 49ers' first 8 games last night, where they shot themselves in the foot and couldn't seem to catch the ball when needed to spark some type of a comeback. Now, who knows, had they made those catches, whether it would have been enough. It was a shellacking yesterday, and therefore you could imagine that even if they had, it wouldn't have been sufficient for the comeback effort. But I will point out that I think when you're physically dominating a team in the way that the 49ers were yesterday, it can lead to those mistakes by the other team. They can start pressing. And on defense, when you're getting hit in the way the 49ers were flying around the football, we'd be fools to think that that's not on a receiver or tight end's mind, as they are trying to both turn their head for a catch that is slightly behind them and turn their head around on a swivel to see whomever is coming at them like a missile. And, those types of mistakes are mental errors. And you would think that ties into the type of dominance. In carrying that forward to Jacksonville, I think the biggest component for me is the 49ers cannot afford to go back and have a slow start to this game. It sets up to potentially be that way. A 10 a.m. start, having flown across the country, I've not done the research. Maybe going to New England is a few miles more, but you would think Jacksonville is one of the furthest road trips possible. So you're logging a lot of flight time in getting there. It would be easy coming off a very physical game, coming off of a very emotional win, traveling a ton of miles across country, starting the game early. This sets up to be a classic trap game to where teams come out flat. You would hope, with everything the 49ers have been through this season, with all of the lessons learned to this point, you would think that they would guard against that. But they said they guarded against that coming up against Arizona. That was a highly winnable game with a lot of key players out that I do think they'll look back on as a moment of regret within a season that didn't start in the way that they envisioned. Now they have a chance to rewrite this season. It is not too late for them to leave a footprint on the NFL, even if it ends up with just barely missing the wild card, or if another team gets on a hot streak. If the Niners go 10-7 some miraculous way and miss the playoffs, I'm going to count that as a win. I'm going to count that as positive momentum for next season. And my God, if they have a storybook type of a win where, like the Packers did in their Super Bowl victory, where they make the wild card, the 6th seed, and then run the table, I mean, you cherish that as the ultimate Cinderella season. And that's where we still are. That's why I'm able to have hope going into this one. Jacksonville is a very beatable team. Yes, it sets up as a trap game, but the 49ers have evidenced for themselves that they cannot afford to fall into that trap. Now it's just a matter of executing.
Definitely. I see a lot of arguing going on in the comments about Trey and Jimmy versus Trey. I'll put it to you this way. As long as the 49ers are in contention and the 49ers have a chance, the chances if you're going to see Trey in any type of long, you're not going to see him that much. It's not going to happen. The Niners would have to be out of it for Trey to get in there. It's like I said, it's a meritocracy. And as much as I love Trey Lance and I want to see him be the future quarterback of this team, in this particular moment and circumstances and what part of the season the 49ers are in and how things are going right now, Jimmy gives you the best chance.
He does. And let's be clear that if he keeps playing the way he has the last 3 weeks, it's correct to keep him in there. He does give the 49ers the best chance to win. I still am on the side of, and I was completely wrong before the game saying I really want to make sure Lance gets his 5 snaps in these packages that allow him some playing time. And I still feel that way. But man, am I glad that they didn't mess with what was going on last night. The rhythm just was perfect. Kyle, someone in my comments said this, and I won't get it right, but he said it perfectly. Kyle was in his bag like there were chips at the bottom of it. I mean, he was. He had his best game
coaching in a long time.
Right? It was like, that's the Kyle Shanahan where I see that and I say, that's why we got to hold on to him. That's why you don't bail early.
That's why I got my disrespectful Kyle shirt on.
I love it. I love it. Yes. When he is playing with that, when he's coaching with that confidence, when he's proving the 49ers offensive identity as opposed to allowing the defenses to dictate to him how he approaches them, it leaves me with such inspiration, such confidence about what this team can achieve. That's why it's also so frustrating when he gets away from it, though, because it's the same team, just minus the verve, minus the pizzazz. It just makes you wonder where it went, how it got so flat. So from here on out, the 49ers cannot afford any flat spots. It is nothing but rolling from here on out.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game against Jacksonville for the simple fact that I want to see if the Niners can do it 2 weeks in a row and be consistent. And if something's working, stay on it and not get bored. If they got to run the ball 40 times and only throw the ball 19, if that's what it takes, I don't care. At the end of the day, it's all about winning. Like Niner Sickness said in the chat, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it's all about winning, and he doesn't care who's driving the ship. As much as I want Lance to be the future and to see what he's got, if the Niners are winning and Jimmy gives them the best chance and it keeps things afloat and keeps things going in a good direction, and you got to stick with what's working.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Luke. Just about to head out here. Haven't been feeling all too great, but I'm glad I got a chance to have this with you again. I got my mug here too.
Love
where
it.
Are we here?
Cheers, my friend.
Definitely cheers. And for the people in the chat, me and Rob are going to definitely do this again as a regular thing now and through probably into the off season as well. So if you guys like what you hear and see, and you can see more of it on Rob's own channel, Rob Schuh, follow him on Twitter, The Left Schuh, which I think is probably the best Twitter handle I've ever seen. And we're definitely going to try to keep doing this. You can find him, like I said, he's been on Grant Cohn's show too. He's a pretty regular guy in there as well. Oh wow, you're being very, very generous today, Luke. Thank you very, very much. Luke, you the man. Me and Luke don't always agree on everything, but we always, at the end of the day, we're both 49er fans and we both support whatever it takes for us to win. So
that's the key.
I had a blast with you, Rob. I want to do this again. I don't know how this week's going to go as far as like a pregame, but if you want to do a follow-up next week after the game, maybe I'll go more based on your time period this time than mine. Like you were able to help me out and work with me tonight. So I feel like I could return the favor on your channel and figure out a way to get on there and, make everything work for everybody.
I appreciate it. That would be great.
All right, everyone. Rob, thanks for coming on. Thanks for everybody in the chat. You guys were lit. This chat was moving. Everybody remember we all cheer for the same team. So keep that in mind.
Right.
And hopefully we can keep it going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But until next time, everyone, as I always say, I'll see you on the flip side. Bye, everybody.